Io so, un ser umano. I am a human.
It gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. And as well, interesting as well, I'd like to share some insights from the background as well. So Shada very openly shared her whole story, and then the students at first they wanted to actually interview her mom, and but then and really showcase her story, but actually that could be as well putting on the spot the vulnerability of your collaborator. So we say you can't do that. And also that's just one individual story. And as well being a refugee, as well we use the term refugee, but refugees are from so many different countries. They flee their homes for so many different reasons. So the story of one person doesn't even really explains what being a refugee means. So that, and then as well, and initially as well, also as you can see, they call this film. They want to say their story or her story, and then I challenged that. But you are othering her story in this way. So then they shifted this. So it starts as their story because as well we have always this narrative of othering refugees, and it ends as our story, and it's a message of humanity. And as well in a way, also we are all one day or another we may also become refugees with climate change or for so many different war can explode here considering what's going on. So as well really to build empathy and understanding the humanity and how we are all part of this global system. So I found it very powerful, and then as well I had to challenge them, not that I care about fashion particularly, but I say, where is fashion in this? And then they created this veil, which as well reflects the hijab of Iran, where she's from, and she hand wrote this poem in Farsi. And as well, I think as well, this textile artifact bring the project to life beyond the film. Just very briefly as well, I want to, well, Male also asked me, what did the experience mean to you? And as well, I'm doing this as part, after 11 years of teaching, I did a PG cert just now, just finished yesterday, and I had to reflect on this practice. Yeah, what I found out in this project, in this process was these themes that I'm gonna briefly share before. So, again, the concept of creating a safe space, especially when we bring students and vulnerable people together. We had Adam Raymaker, actually, if you have a need, Adam Raymaker, he works across UAL in international communication, is amazing. He delivered 2 workshops to support the students in thinking about positionality, cultural appropriation, values. He builds a lot on the work of Iniva with the emotional learning cards, etc. And as well, these projects open up to vulnerabilities. You may, as well as Male said, that this is an invitation for taking risks. You may feel vulnerable at some point, and as well, we need to be mindful that we may put you in touch with the UAL counseling services if you need, because it can be triggering. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if Male has any background, but you should have support available to you. But in a way, this vulnerability transformed into empathy and then in change in themselves. As well, the participants said that this project put together 2 very different worlds, that of students and refugees who haven't otherwise met, and it contributed to building empathy. And at the core of this process, as the students said, it was a process of listening. And they say listening with mind, not just with ears. And this is the Flavors Exchange project, where they actually created connections through food. Then shifting perceptions, as well removing stigma towards refugees. Adam also said, I can't recognize who here is a refugee or a student, as well the students are from all over the world. But because the interactions went so smoothly in the end that yeah, it was very well handled. And as well, some students said, I've learned that refugees are delicate yet more resilient than the average human, and that their strength is something to learn from. So a message of resilience for everyone to embody in our everyday lives. We constantly reminded ourselves of our privilege, prejudice, and challenged current power dynamics. As well, one student said, as a student at LCF and in life, one must put aside the sense of self and open-mindedly behave like a sponge and be welcoming to new perspectives that may not be something one is familiar with. As well, this process of decolonizing or decentering means actually working in solidarity with, rather than helping others. We don't want to help people. We just actually want to create conditions for social change to happen and co-creation. As well, the teams of students, I put them in touch with Karuna, who had this vision of this performance, but she didn't have the expertise in terms of photography, filmmaking, costume design. But as well, the students, very professionally, they were a bit, also because they had to do this for the assignment, so they had to set up, like a bit pushy, to be honest. Sometimes just please be gentle and mindful if you work with vulnerable people. Like Karuna was going through all the process to get the refugee status, so lots of other life challenges, and just be mindful of that there is a life beyond your students' projects. And as well, and of course, very professionally, my students, they had the ethics form and all of that, all very professional, but actually forms can be very triggering for refugees. They're asked all the time to fill in forms from the home office. So, and as well, also English is not the mother tongue. So then she almost like didn't want to participate. Say like, are you the home office? What is this form? What is this agreement I'm signing? And then they changed completely their tone, their attitude. It became much more informal, much more, just let it go of your design. I know that you've been taught service design, or like blueprints, all of these things, design management, very like professional things, but as well, you may need to scrap, as Helen's story said, let go your previous design training. I mean, we are training you, but also you need to build flexibility to understand what's appropriate or not in different contexts. And as I mentioned before, one team as well, they want to decenter the English language. Like, why do we use English? It's inclusive, but it's also very exclusive for other people. So they actually focus on the craft making skills. That's it. I mean, actually, well, this quote from one student. This is Shada, who actually she lost her father, and as well, if you're a refugee, you can't even go back to your country. She lost her father, and she was traumatized. Like she said, I feel like a stone, but this project is giving me an opportunity to get closer to my feelings and turn my pain into something beautiful. So as well, I hope that this project will be transformative as well for you to learn new skills, new qualities, and that's it. I mean, as well, just very briefly to mention, there is this exhibition that Male will let you know more. As well, the exhibition is part of my big project. There are lots of things. We will visit the Barbican today, so we'll see how much space there will be. But we'll find ways to also include some of your work. And that's it. Here are some references and questions. But shall I also explain this or not for them to take away? Or just let's have questions?
I can share.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
I want some
questions, yeah. But just to say, before you think about questions, these are things that tools that you can use in your own time. I hope they make sense. If they don't, I will explain. But as well, I'd like you to reflect on what change you want to see in the world, whereas if it's more related to economy, society, environment, culture. And I often use this as the beginning of a collaborative project, because then you can think about what are your values, what drives your, like what matters to you in life. And if you take this values-driven approach, you will be more successful in your project. What roles you want to play, what skills you can contribute to your team, and also think about what challenges and opportunities there are for change within yourself and within the system. And I leave it here with this quote from Helen. Any questions? Sorry, I'm terrible at time management.
I think the question has to be recorded.
Yes.
Well, first, thank you very much. That was awesome and inspiring and touching, and you talked through us a lot of things. I was trying to get some quotes. I'm glad actually that you repeat the quote of Helen's story at the end, because I remember when the first ideas of starting to work with refugees, I was new at UAL, and I knew she was at UAL, and finally I can talk to my heroes. And I approached her, and she was so generous to give me a call, and we have a long chat, and that was exactly what she told me, exactly your quote. Be ready to unlearn, be ready to dump all your design skills, be ready to remove off your expertise or whatever if you actually want to work in this area. And then she told me, call Francesco. But that wasn't a question, that was just a comment. Questions from the...
link to my blog for the Participatory where you can find much more about the students' projects and many other things.
I need to record your question, so I put your hands up and I follow you.
I'm just wondering if actions like these, you did mention that they help them feel a sense of belonging and things like that, but does it actually help fight the mindset of assimilation to, in the broader sense? I mean, I understand that it can help them tell their story, but later in the larger society, does it actually help them fight the need for assimilation just to be able to function in this society?
I like to also remind the quote from Camus that is about exalting the good bits that are working in the system. But I guess you have your answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, I think in a way, well, different people have very different approaches to this, different participants. So some people, they are displaced, so actually engaging in this work and reconnecting to through the craft, it gives them a sense of belonging, as they say it also in the film. But actually, other people, they actually want to assimilate. I mean, actually, as well, assimilation, it's a bad word, I think. Well, there is social inclusion or integration. As well, the language can be unpacked and challenged. I don't know what's the best. Yeah, definitely assimilation, I think, is negative connotation. Social inclusion, maybe it's better. And in a way, what we are trying to do is as well to connect them with local organizations. So as well, for instance, some people went into this other local course, and as well, we deliver the workshops in community centers. So in a way, they're trying to integrate into society through this, and craft and making and actually building on the skills you can contribute can allow or enable that process of integration or inclusion, I think. Yeah, and possibly as well with the next step, I mean, potentially there could be also economic inclusion by creating bridges with the fashion industry that actually needs skilled people. That could be a positive outcome if we do manage to do that. But as well, also you mentioned about global things. Of course, this is a very tiny local project. We work in 3 boroughs in East London. Of course, we're not changing the whole system and international politics. There are other people that will have to do that. But the last work package is about advocacy for policy change. So we will convene those roundtable discussions with policymakers to try to advocate for policy change. But as well, policy change won't happen overnight. We'll go way beyond the scope of an HRC funded project. So, but we try, as Molly said, to plant some seeds of change. Do you have a question?
Thanks, Molly. Thanks for the presentation. It was really, really interesting. And as someone that knows absolutely nothing about the fashion industry and about fashion, as a discipline, maybe when I first came into here, I thought, how could fashion be the best vessel for addressing these kind of global emergencies? And I think you've gone some way in answering that. I think it's a conversation that maybe doesn't have an exact answer, but I really appreciate you sharing like your project with us. Like the video of it was really, really interesting about how you can use kind of creativity in this really like tactile way for people that probably have faced a lot of trauma in their lives, and these kind of small kind of interactions, how that can make a difference. I'm still not sure if I'm totally convinced that it's really the best vessel for funding and resources in this area, especially considering how many issues there are within kind of commercial fashion. but anyway, I think that Sakshi's question was kind of similar to that. So sorry, Marley. So my question's actually going to be slightly different, which is one of the issues I would see within using fashion in this way is how do you stop it becoming, like, well, on the first hand, vanity projects for the designers, which I think is a question that you can ask all designers, including the very practical type of design we do. But also how you can, stop it. Like if you're talking about systemic design, you can talk about, this kind of bottom line as being, traditionally very financial. And if you introduce a different, sorry, Molly, this is a long question. And if you introduce kind of sustainability as a bottom line, it has to be measurable. And if it's measurable, then it becomes a checkbox exercise quite quickly. And I think that with fashion, there can be a lot of posturing about it. You talk about social media, but that can also be, people just using it, in a very superficial way to say, hey, look what I'm doing. Look how good I am, and this kind of thing. So how do you kind of measure the impact of your projects without falling into that trap of, becoming posturing or, having this kind of quantifiable kind of quota-based, end result.
The issue of impact is a very relevant. So interested about see how you answer, but I've been asking my partners and collaborators about how you measure impact in something that you are not doing a change, but you put in a seed. So the impact you will measure 5 years later. 10 years later, and with words that don't fit in those categories. But I'm interested how you...
Yeah. Well, also, thanks for your comment. In a way, I think as well, I don't necessarily need to advocate for how fashion is great. Actually, I'm actually doing research in fashion because I want to change the fashion system, which is quite toxic. But I think as well, in a way, I still use the word fashion because we want to reframe what fashion means, and I hope it was quite illuminating to see a very different approach. I mean, yeah, it's beyond fashion, I think. But actually, as you can understand, my work is very qualitative. It's no quantitative at all. There are different ways I guess the design value framework from Design Council, which I was also involved in, can help finding ways to evaluate the impacts of design, but the theory of change could be useful to evaluate this type of projects. But I'm interested in the stories of change, and as you can see, and as well, there was a slide about outcomes so far, and these are initial impacts. But as well, I think the stories of change in these people hopefully evidences the impacts we are making, and these are just early stages, but that's what we're doing. And now with the new Council grant, we have hired an evaluator who is an artist, and she will use visual art techniques to evaluate, to actually as well articulate the stories of change. But as well, there is much more need for better research in finding good ways to evaluate social impact. Possibly as well, the design value by Design Council could be a possibility, or theory of change, or I'm looking forward to knowing what other frameworks or methods you use. Any more questions?
I actually have a paper on evaluating knowledge exchange projects and creativity in knowledge exchange projects. And it goes against any framework of measuring impact. I use words like constellations and something much, not even qualitative, but metaphorical even. So...
And also, just maybe, at UAL, there is Patricia Kaczynska, who is quite key, but also we have Lara Salinas here, who are very focused on evaluation of design projects. Another question.
I'm going to take the last question because there are people waiting for the room. Who is the last question? You?
Yeah, 1 minute. Last question.
So very quickly. Thank you so much. I think the whole presentation is like really inspiring. I just wanted to ask, I know that you touched upon the perception of people who've come here in the communities who are like already established here. And I just wanted to ask if there is in your work, like you think if there is some kind of space to work on that kind of area where how people perceive them, though these people come with their skills, but they're always perceived as people with, something needing or learning. So you think that there is something in the projects that you've done which touched upon these aspects to build that kind of perception, or if there is some kind of work which can happen in the future? And behavioral insights kind of aspect also.
That wasn't quick, but
I mean, I think in a way the students' projects are also creating these storytelling campaigns. That's a good way to show the crafts, or the textile book wants to showcase the skills and the stories of people to shift those narratives. So yeah, we are contributing, as you are, in shifting those narratives from being people who lack jobs and skills, etc., to actually showcasing their talents and cultural heritage and identity. So we are contributing to that, and hopefully as well your project will amplify that. But let's stay in touch as well. I will be back here tomorrow, so if you are coming to my lecture, ask me more questions. I will try to be better with time management, so there will be more time for discussion. But thanks, Male, and definitely we'll be in touch again soon. Thank you.
thank you, Francesco. That was a great way to kick off this project. Until the next time.